Hello and welcome to Extra Minutes, the 60 Minutes podcast. I'm Amelia Adams and I'm here with producer Natalie Clancy. Hi, Nat.
Hello, Amelia.
Now, we are bringing back a really iconic part of our program. Some viewers would remember years ago, 60 Minutes would close every show with Peter Harvey's Mailbag.
It was my favourite growing up.
Mine too.
I remember watching and begging my parents to stay up so I could watch the Mailbag.
Well, you get the feedback from the viewers.
And talking about saving hides, really thick hides,
I'd done something bad.
the world's greatest escape artist talked disarmingly about all the sex and lies.
I think I did something for the worst possible reason, that just because I could.
But Monica didn't make Slick Willie's sorry list, not by a long shot. What Bubba really regrets is not getting Osama bin Laden. Everyone persistently goes on about George W. Bush and his ethics, and you have the gall to air a program about Bill Clinton, who enjoyed himself in the White House with Monica. No wonder he didn't have time to look for Osama. I suppose that makes Monica a one-woman weapon of mass distraction.
So in a modern sort of take on that, we're sharing a lot of the comments from our viewers here on the podcast, the good and the bad, even though we're often told not to read the bad comments for our mental health.
Absolutely.
And today we thought we'd talk about a lesser-known family member of the former US President Joe Biden. In 2024, we broadcast a story about little Navy Joan, and she is a grandchild of the then US President Joe Biden. And this turned out to be a surprisingly controversial story.
Absolutely it did, and it got quite a big reaction, not just here but overseas as well.
Yeah, and I think how controversial it was is we're seeing in the feedback. You know, this is more than a year since the story went to air and we're still getting comments. She is a gorgeous little girl, and we've had some viewers saying, oh my God, she looks just like him.
Across the eyes, I think she does.
Yeah, that kid has Hunter's face. And you recall in the story, Navy Joan's mother, London Roberts, saying that people used to sort of say, like, look at the little girl and say, oh my gosh, she looks like a Biden. She looks so much like him.
You know, she has his eyes and that furrowed brow and everything else, you know, that comes with those eyes. I've had someone ask me before, you know, or say, you have such beautiful eyes. Like, I've never seen eyes like those before. And it's like, do you watch CNN? Do you watch the news? You'll see them there.
And we should remind people as well, London met Hunter in 2017,
Yes.
really at the height of his well-documented addiction to crack cocaine and alcohol. She was working as a female entertainer, as a stripper at the time.
Yep.
They met, they hit it off, they had an on-off relationship, which resulted in this surprise pregnancy of little Navy Joan. And it wasn't until 2020, if I recall, that a paternity test confirmed Navy Joan was in fact Hunter's daughter. A lot of our viewers were debating whether this is a private matter or whether it merits public interest. And that's something that we always struggle with or tackle in our 60 Minutes story meetings, isn't it? Because ultimately our job is to interview people and bring issues to light that, you know, may be controversial or maybe deeply personal and private. But if people want to tell their story, we're here to do that.
And I think sometimes they're both. That they're a personal issue,
Yes.
but there's also a public interest in it. And there's probably a few layers as to why this story was worth telling. But I think one of them is that Joe Biden's a guy who campaigned on family values for a
Absolutely.
really long time. And so for this to happen and for him to essentially block this grandchild from being part of the family is relevant to him in that sense.
Well, the Bidens didn't acknowledge the existence of Navy Joan, I think, until, was it 2024?
It was
before
late.
the campaign. So I think you're right. I mean, one viewer's written, this is between you and Hunter. Another one says, not really, because he is a public figure. Everybody wants to know why the son of the US president has a daughter who he does not look after, which is fair. I think, as you said, there's a lot of public interest, and, you know, whether or not you think London Roberts should have shared her story, that was her decision. She decided to go public, whatever her motivations, and we'll get to that because lots of comments around that as well.
And I think too, often a good sort of gauge as to whether a story is in the public interest is the reaction.
That's right.
And the fact that it got people talking so much showed that they cared. One way or the other, they did care about the story.
And US politics is so polarizing.
Yeah.
I mean, imagine if Donald Trump had a secret grandchild.
Absolutely.
You know, front page news. And then I think because it was, you know, Joe Biden and it sort of, I mean, it bubbled along, but it didn't get a lot of traction.
No, it really didn't.
In the States, in the news cycle, did it?
And that may have been because, as you said, Hunter had a lot of well-documented personal issues.
He did. So let's talk about that because really Hunter Biden is the problem child.
Yeah.
And that's really the only way to put it. You know, he really struggled with addiction. He was investigated for his foreign business dealings. He was convicted in 2024 on 3 federal firearms-related charges. He's suffered a lot of tragedy as well. You know, he lost his mum and his little sister in a car accident when he was very, very young, and then he lost his brother, his best friend, Bo Biden, from brain cancer. So he's certainly had a lot of difficulty in his life, but he's also had, because of that, a lot of focus on him.
Yes.
And the press and the right-wing press in America, the conservative press, became obsessed with Hunter Biden, his foreign business dealings, and whatever was on his laptop. So anything to do with him really was seized upon. And so, you know, enter this cute little bubbly blonde Navy Joan, and she, you know, it did become a matter of public interest.
For sure. And as you say, it's not like one side of politics or the other, because at the moment there's huge interest in Donald Trump's family's business dealings.
Of course.
And a lot of issues relating to them that some people might think are personal.
Yeah, we've got one viewer here saying, glad she, London Roberts, is finally speaking out. The Biden family tried really hard to silence her. I got that sense from London and the time that we
Me
spent
too.
with her and interviewing her, that she had grappled with, hey, this is a member of your family. This is your grandchild. This is your son. Why aren't you acknowledging her? I think she was very open about the fact that you know, she was disgruntled about that.
Totally. And also we had those little, those lovely sequences of Navy, you know, writing letters or drawing pictures for her dad.
I bet he's gonna love this because it has his favorite color on it and everything.
Navy is doing what any 5-year-old would to feel closer to her dad.
I painted it for you, and it's for you, and you can hang it up so the bird can come.
It kind of simplified down to a mother and daughter just wanting to have some kind of link to the rest of the family.
Got a viewer here saying, funny how 60 Minutes thinks it's appropriate to report this in 2025, but not when it was a news story. So we should say, you know, we reported this in 2024 when it was a news story.
Yes.
And our stories go on YouTube, and this viewer may have only just watched it. But I think that's part of why they continue to gain traction.
Oh, for sure.
The timing of this as well was so crucial. It was the middle of the US presidential campaign, Joe Biden running for a second term, lots of questions about whether or not he was competent and, you know, well enough really to do that. And then, as a lot of our viewers have pointed out, you know, why this timing? Well, that was when London Roberts decided to write a memoir.
Totally. And I think we were upfront about that in the story. So people watching could draw their own conclusions about why she wanted to make this story public at such a pressing time politically. But I think that's a pretty simple explanation.
Quite a few viewers too wanting to, you know, talk about Hunter Biden as a father. You can't force anyone to be in your child's life, including the father. I'm sure Hunter is paying child support. And, you know, we did put in the story that he was actually paying $20,000. In fact, that was US dollars, so call it 30,000 Australian dollars a month child support.
It's a lot of money.
It's a lot of money. And I put that to London. I said to her, look, a lot of people questioning your motivations. You're getting a lot of money since the paternity test confirmed that Hunter is in fact the father. And she was really adamant that she wanted her daughter to have a relationship with her father, wasn't she?
Absolutely she was. And to be involved in some of those family traditions too, I think.
Yeah.
There was a bit of discussion about, you know, having her involved in official photos and all that kind of thing.
Or whether she might attend inauguration, if indeed he won, which he didn't.
Yes. It was like they felt excluded.
Yeah. Interesting to note too that they changed that child support arrangement so that Hunter Biden paid her a much lesser figure, but instead, she had contact.
That's
Navy
right.
Joan had phone calls with her dad, and she was able to choose, and I assume this is continuing, but she's been able to choose a piece of his artwork. He's gotten into painting and art as part of his recovery, sobriety, and she chooses an artwork of his, I think, every month.
Yes,
It's
that's
an
my
unusual
memory
child
too.
child care relationship, but it does sound like they'd found a way to work towards at least Navy Joan and Hunter as father and daughter having some sort of connection.
And I think you could tell that too through some of the vision we shot with Navy, that she had a real sense of who her dad was.
Yeah.
And she had, I guess, those answers that she might not have had if this hadn't played out. To land with some confirmation that she was his daughter.
That's right. Quite a few more viewers questioning London's intentions. I have to question why the mother is doing this interview. It's unfair on her beautiful, innocent little daughter. Not everyone can say, she's quoting London here when she says, not everyone can say their grandfather is the president of the US. It makes one question the real reason she got pregnant. Look, I mean, everyone can have their opinion. That's why, we put these stories to air, and that's why we, are sharing these comments. I think London was pretty clear about the fact that the pregnancy was not expected.
Yes.
And she fell pregnant at a time when Joe Biden was not yet president.
Absolutely. And I think maybe that was part of her motivation for doing the story as well, in that she wanted to put her side of the story on the record publicly, because I'm sure she gets these sorts of questions all the time, just in her day-to-day life.
Yeah.
And by speaking her truth publicly, it's out there once and for all.
They made me out to be a gold digger, a one-night stand.
She wants money. She wants fame.
Yeah, no. I'm not looking for benefits. I'm looking for a family to love my child that she loves.
It was a fascinating story to me because of the sort of opposite worlds that we saw. You got the Bidens, then President Joe Biden and Jill in the White House. Hunter, very involved in that campaign in 2024, having gone through all his, very well documented troubles and then legal troubles in this, highly political, high-profile world. And then little Navy Joan living in Arkansas.
Going shooting on the weekend.
Skeet shooting with this is like red, Trump-loving Republican country.
And even her maternal grandfather
yes,
had been shooting with some of Donald Trump's sons.
That's right. The hardcore Republicans.
Yeah.
So it was a really interesting contrast. But, I found London very, very affable, very open, very personable.
And there was nothing she wouldn't answer.
No.
She didn't have any conditions. People who were skeptical about her motivation.
Yeah.
There were no rules or no-go zones.
That's
She
right.
was ready to answer any question you had for her.
She was, and I think she said to me, if you write a book, you got to be ready to answer the questions, and she
Yeah.
was. So look, Navy Joan is out of the spotlight because, the Bidens are no longer in the White House. So we don't really know at this point what the relationship is, how it's
No.
evolved between Navy and her father or even the grandparents. But we are still a year later getting so much comments. So we encourage you to continue to leave your comments for us. And if you haven't seen the story yet or want to refresh, you can catch up, of course, on our 60 Minutes YouTube channel or on 9 Now.